Yo, I'm here with Dan, the Hangman Hooker. Nice to see you, brother.
Good to see you too, my friend.
Hey, thanks for taking the time out. I know it's a week before your big fight with Dustin Poirier. I really appreciate you setting aside a bit of time to chat with us, man.
Yeah, no worries at all. Just finished my last sparring session. I've got my last spider session tomorrow, so one more hard one to get in the books, and then it's pretty smooth sailing until fight week.
For those of you who don't know, Dan, the Hangman Hooker, is the world number 5 in the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I met Dan, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something, when he was doing jujitsu downstairs and then coming upstairs to beat up all my beginning kickboxing students. And I was like, whoa, take it easy. That guy just started and you're real good. And I just learned, is your birthday February the 13th?
It is.
So is mine. So I'm exactly 10 years older than you. You're 30 years old. I'm 40 years old.
It's a sign.
It's a sign, bro. Martial
It's
arts.
a podcast meant to be.
Yeah. So you've been fighting for a long time now, man. I was checking out some old footage of you fighting. Remember you fought 120 kilo man when you were only about 86. Pride rules. You just
Yes, I fought featherweight in China like two weeks before that. So I fought at 66 kilos 2 weeks before that, and then came back to New Zealand, got real fat, and then it just came up like short notice. The heavyweight guy at my gym was injured like in the last week of training, and so I put my hand up to take the fight, and it all just came together. I knew the way that the sport was going. I knew that sort of thing. Like I don't think that sort of thing would even fly. And today, I was still like, we got some pretty mad people in like the sanctioning bodies, but even they would be like, oh, I don't know, we're trying to get this thing into an Olympic sport and make it a mainstream sport. So I knew it was like one of the last opportunities you would get to fight like pride rules, no weight limit, like just for the experience.
Just for the hell of it. For the uninitiated, because I guess a lot of the people who watch my shit aren't MMA or kickboxing or Muay Thai guys. What is it you love about fighting so much, man?
It's such a massive challenge. Like I could sit here all day talking about why I like it, but
we can.
we have all day. It's just like I feel so comfortable. I feel so comfortable doing it. You know, you have so much. You have like I was just an aggressive young kid. Like I just had too much aggression, and said it before. Like most of aggressive young men internalize that and end up just destroying themselves or destroying like the people around them. So I just found direction in the sport. Like I found something. I did it the first session I ever had. I did one session and I was just like, so this is my life now. Like I'm just gonna do this. Like I get to go to a gym every day and kind of blow off some steam and release that aggression and direct it in the most constructive manner possible. Like people look from the outside looking in and they look at the sport and they're like, man, that's a dangerous sport. Like you're putting your life on the line, like you might hurt. Like I'm more dangerous when I'm not directing it at this, like because then I get depressed and then I get anxiety and then it's like it just spirals. So this sport gives me direction and it kind of just lets me be at peace. Like after I finish a training session, a hard sparring session, like I feel the most peaceful I've ever felt.
Man, I really relate to that. I appreciate you being so honest about feeling anxious and feeling depressed. Is that something I've never really heard you talk about? Do you feel like you've had some struggles with depression and anxiety and those sorts of things coming up as a young man before you got into martial arts?
I think, yeah, like that's just everyone feels that. That's just like the most common thing in the world. There's not a person walking the face of the earth that doesn't feel some kind of depression or some kind of anxiety. Those are just emotions that we need to learn to better deal with. But definitely. Before I was just lucky that I found the sport when I did. I found the sport when I was 18 years old. I just finished school and I didn't know what direction I was going to go. So I just found the sport at the perfect time.
There'll be people out there wondering if you had like a rough upbringing. Like what was growing up for you like?
No, just middle class family. My parents are still together. They retired down to the Coromandel, but then
Nice.
we all started popping out grandkids. So they felt they were a bit too far away, so they came back. So yeah, like that. I've always felt like I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, but I never tried to like. I feel like it's just natural. Like I naturally am.
You're born that way.
I
You don't
was
feel like
I
it's like
just
an event that started it.
Yeah. I never tried to like pin it on one thing. Like I just feel like I naturally have a chip on my shoulder, and I have a chip on my shoulder about something. And most people like you're the reason, you're the reason, and they go around like finding a reason. They want to find out where their chip came from. Me, I went kind of the other way, and I made a living off of my chip. I just have a chip on my shoulder, and I'm like, they say, "Oh, do you want to fight Dustin Poirier?" I take the chip and I point it at Dustin Poirier's direction, and I make a living off it. So rather than destroying myself over it, I'd rather just direct it at opponents in a ring in the safest environment possible.
I love that. That's actually really positive because you did right. Like, we've known each other a long time through martial arts and Muay Thai and all of that. But a lot of my work these days is around helping young men and masculinity and all this sort of shit. And there are fucking millions of young dudes out there who have that chip, and just as you say, are joining gangs, getting into drugs, doing crime. How do you think, as a society, we can encourage those boys into something as constructive as MMA or?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Like MMA or combat sports is for like some kind of people, but a lot of those people, a lot of like big tough guys, like guys in gangs, like it's not like really for them. It's not the most constructive thing for them. Like some of those people are more just like they have that image as a facade. So you have those kind of people walk in the gym and they get put under the pump, and you can see that they straight away they're looking for
They're
a
not
way
into
out.
it.
So yeah, a lot of people I've met in my life, like they join gangs and get tattoos on their face, and so they can intimidate people. So they don't have to resort to some kind of conflict. So they just trying to look as intimidating as possible or do some intimidating things. So then it's like people are scared of the facade. So a lot of it's for show really. So I don't feel like the sport is for everyone. Like you don't really know until you see it. Like I see some of people that would think, well, wimps, like they're office job workers, they work, sit at a desk, push a pen, they're 50 kilos soaking wet, but then they get put under the pump in the gym, and you see them bite down in their mouthpiece and swing like crazy, and you're just like, whoa, I never would have expected that. So I never try, when people walk in the gym, I never try to pick them off first glance because it takes time. It takes time to see their true personality.
And that's interesting because you obviously run your very successful gym Combat Academy, which in a short amount of time is, you've picked up a bunch of New Zealand titles with kickboxers and Muay Thai guys. And are you balancing looking after your fighters while you're looking after yourself?
I feel better when I'm busy. When I have that's when I feel most comfortable. It's like the strangest. It's like there's not many people I run into with like the same personality type where I like when I have a big fight, when I have a lot going on, when I just am constantly in motion, constantly working, constantly working. That's when I feel the most at peace. It's like the craziest thing. When I don't do well being bored. Like when I'm being bored, then then
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mind starts then the mind starts to drift off. So I like being busy. I love to stay busy.
Right. Do you still hold pads for your fighters and spar with them and mix them up, or how do you balance your own energy expenditure with what you put into your students?
Yeah, so when I'm coming down, so let's speak the last few weeks where I've got a big fight coming up and I'm training. Like I still teach all of my classes. Yeah, I still hold pads, but it's when I'm not in camp, then I can go down and jump in a sparring and have a bit of fun and spend a lot more time at the gym. But yeah, I'm there. I'm at my gym every single day. So I go to City Kickboxing and train, and then at some point of the day, every single day, I'm teaching at my own academy, holding pads, directing drilling. Like I'm definitely there a lot.
Well, yeah, man. How do you? Because you've become a father. Like, how old's your little one?
Yeah, my daughter's 18 months old. Well, I have an amazing wife, but yeah, there's a lot of free time for fighters. Like it's not like you can train like 6 hours in a
A
row.
day.
Like
Yeah.
you would just burn out. Like there's a lot of idle time, and it's just managing your time in the correct way. But yeah, I spend a lot of time with my family during the day. Like I'll go wake up, cook them breakfast, go to training, come back, hang out, have lunch with them, and then I'm back off to the gym.
I love that because, yeah, you're like a. This is really interesting because when I think about how people talk about fighters and yada yada, we get stuck in the stereotype of like you're tough and you're like a man's man and like these old school sort of stereotypes. But here you are waking up, being a great dad, being hands-on, cooking your wife breakfast, and then you're off to the gym to learn how to fuck people up, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's an interesting role model. Do you think that people have a lot of misconceptions about the fight game? Because I really struggle with. There's still some stereotypes that
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's definite stereotypes. I think I'm definitely break them because I'm about I don't know. I've never really had like motivation to look tough. Like
Huh.
it's just never been one of my things. Like people are like, why don't you like look more intimidating? I'm like, then I like to fight. I feel like if someone picks on me, I've legitimately had this in my life where people have been like, oh, like he looks weak, and they've like started a fight with me. Then I start mixing them up, start touching them up, and I kid you not, he just goes, whoa, 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 whoa. He's like, I didn't know you could fight. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So you were gonna fuck me up. You were gonna beat me up. That was fine when you thought I didn't know how to fight. Now it's too late, my friend. You committed to this.
Did you get the full Mortal Kombat fatality? I hope you did.
He full just called it off. He just called
Yeah.
it off. He took a knee. He took a knee.
Yeah, not the good,
I'm out.
not the cult.
I'm
Yeah.
out.
How is that? How's being famous, man? Because like I remember, like when before City Kickboxing exploded, you were the first guy in the UFC from New Zealand, and now you're literally at the world's number one gym, and you're alongside Israel and Kai, and you're a global superstar, Dan. Like, how are you dealing with that? Is that like fuck with your mental health, or like how do you deal with that pressure?
Um, Nah, I don't really feel that at all. I feel like you're as famous as you think you are. Like
Hmm.
there's like a lot of people with like a lot smaller, let's say like following than me, like a few hundred people follow them on Instagram and they walk around like
With man's
looking
fame.
real cool, buying expensive cars on like higher purchase, and like they genuinely walk the streets like thinking that people are like recognizing me. I don't know. It's cool. Like New Zealanders are cool. Like it's always like real relaxed. Um, a few people like toot at me at the lights and wave out, and it's just like seeing an old friend. You're just like, oh yeah, 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 wave out, give them a thumbs up, and they leave you alone. But I spend most of my time either in gyms at my gym at City Kickboxing or at Combat Academy, and then I only really go out to fight shows. And everyone like it's a pretty small community anyway, so everyone knows everyone else. So like everyone's famous like
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like you've got like your whole squad is
yeah,
mad famous.
like everyone knows everyone. Like I
Yeah,
see
yeah.
like coaches from other gyms, but we all know each other, so it's not like everyone. I'm no more famous than anyone else.
Right, right, right. So yeah, I guess in my experience of you, it's that I have not seen like a profound shift in your personality, but that does happen, right? Have you've seen people like you said, you got homies who got like 200 followers and they think they're big.
Yeah, oh, I definitely used to see it when I was a doorman in town. Like you see that for real. Like people you would go to like you went to school with, and then I was just bouncing and training. Um, like I was bouncing to pay my rent and then training professionally and fighting on like smaller organizations around the world. But yeah, there were like people come in and you know that they just like work at a shoe shop or something, and they work at a shoe shop and they come in and they're just like in a suit and they're like buying a shitload of drinks. They buy like 20 drinks, and I'm like, that I know where you work. That's your whole paycheck. That's your whole paycheck, my guy. Like, relax.
I know. That's amazing. Did you used to bounce doors with your stablemate Brad Riddell? Because I know when I used to train Brad, he was bouncing, and the stories he would come to training with on Monday morning were insane. Like,
Nah, I never worked alongside Brad. Oh,
uh,
there's some crazy stories. It was like
hit us with your top 3 crazy bouncer stories.
it's a fun time. A lot of them I don't want to.
Yeah,
I was pretty cool. Yeah. No, like to be honest, like I was pretty good because I was like I remember I used to go to town as a youngster, and I was a bit of a troublemaker. So I would kind of always see that in myself and like other people that are like, you could see like young 18-year-old, 20-year-old guys had too much to drink and he's just getting mouthy, and you could kind of see yourself in them. So I would never like go out like trying to take anyone's head off or anything like that. But it's yeah, it's just you see a lot of interesting stuff. It's like a all or nothing type situation.
None of that you want to put on the record right now.
No, leave it. We'll leave it.
Yeah. There'll be some guy watching this. He'll be like, "Yo, man, I was out one night, and Hooker kicked me down the fucking stairs." Yeah, that is wild, man. Yeah, it is funny hearing. I think what a theme that's coming through in this conversation is that a lot of young dudes, well, a lot of young people, we struggle with insecurity, and that comes through in a negative way or positive way. You know, like you can go out, get pissed up, try and start a fight with the bouncer, or you can go to training, or you can get into hip hop or dancing or whatever the fuck it is, right? Yeah, I struggle with that. I always like, how do we help young people find constructive ways to deal with their shit that's not alcohol, drugs, and all that sort of stuff?
Oh man, that's tough. Like you're doing some incredible work because it's the same thing. Like I've found like what works for me, but what works for me is not going to work for
other people.
like there's so many options. So you've got one of the toughest jobs in the world, my friend.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, because it was a story about a guy who he broke into your car, and then you just put a public message out like, "Yo, if you want to come to my gym, I'll let you train for free. You turn your shit around, right?" Is that?
Nah, I left. Well, my car was actually unlocked. It's not like he broke into it. He opened the door.
He's an opportunist. Still though.
He's an opportunist. I was still like a little bit pissed off, but it's like, what do you do? What do you do? Like, I would rather if he would see it, come to the gym, and find more constructive ways to spend his time than roaming the streets, going through people's stuff, like
looking for ugly cars. How much of your public role, because you got a big social media following and you're on television and you get 1,000,001 people like myself wanting to talk with you, how much do you see yourself as a role model and you have to showcase how to be a good person?
That definitely helps, like being a father, and not only that, like being a coach. I feel like being a coach is really because my academy's been open for the last 2 years, but before that I was I would PT a lot of guys, or I would have one-on-ones with a lot of students, and they really just copy what you do. Like you can say whatever you want to say, you can tell them whatever you want to tell them, but they see how you act and they see what you do, and then whatever you do, you're like giving them the green light to do that as well. Like if you're out there, bullying people and picking on people and pushing people around, like they really just see that and they were like, oh cool, like that's the way to do it. Like if you're out there like shit talking opponents and creating a bunch of drama, like they get the green light for that as well. So it's like a funny balance of being a role model for these young guys, I guess.
But at the same time, still being yourself.
Yeah, like still being yourself. Like you still, I still like to have a bit of fun and get out there and mix it up with my students. I do enjoy that. I see them not only students, but they're friends and training partners. So yeah, we do like to have a bit of fun, but I always have to keep that in the back of my head. Like, all right, if I do this, then
yeah. You talk
like,
about shit talk and stuff. Like some fighters like to really fucking go in on their. I mean, I know you and Paul Felder had quite like an online beef before you had your epic battle. Is that part of selling a fight for you, like hyping up how you're gonna wreck your opponent, or do you prefer to just lay out the facts as you see them?
yeah, like I feel like if I'm always being true to myself, and if I'm just like stating facts, like if I genuinely think something, like I'm happy to say that, but that tends to like piss people off. When you say, let's say for an instance, like I would say to an opponent, like I think I'm gonna beat you because you got knocked out in your last fight and I won my last fight by knockout. Like that's the reason that I'm gonna beat you. And they're like, oh, and they get all defensive and things. So I feel like as long as I'm being like factually based, it's not.
Yeah, no, this isn't an opinion, homie. This is some real shit.
Yeah. Like I'm not like making shit up. I'm just stating facts. Like I call like a lot of people out. Like I finished my fight, and it's truly just because that fight makes sense. I'm like, let's say Dustin Poirier. I'll call out Dustin Poirier. You're ranked number 3 in the world. You lost your last fight for the world title. I just beat the number 5 in the world. We have to fight. Like that fight makes sense. Like it just makes sense. So it's not like I'm like, I want to fight Conor McGregor and they're going to have to pay me $10 million. Like I'm not just making shit up for the sake of getting headlines. I'm just calling my own shots and directing my own career.
What is obviously the end goal is a title shot, right? That's like you want to see Dustin Poirier as a stepping stone towards title fight.
Yeah. His last fight was for the belt, and if you want a shot at the title, then you beat the last guys to have a shot at it. That's just factual. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. And how's camping? Because it is a little bit shorter, and I've read that you've actually enjoyed the shorter camp. Is that true? And you're not so beat up and tired?
Yeah. Like we do train hard down at City Kickboxing. Like we go into 7 days a week for the last 2 months leading into fights, and before that so we do like 12-week camps. Last 8 weeks, like not a single day off, just hard resting. Like for 2 months, like leading into the fight, it becomes you, like it just ends up consuming you. So it really does wear you down by the time you get to it. So this has been a bit refreshing. Like I finished my last hard sparring session for the camp, and I've felt probably the best I've felt for a very long time. So I'm confident in my fitness and in the plan that my coaches have put in place for me. So it's definitely, I don't feel like it's negatively impacted me. I saw that you said that I was the only one that could have taken the short notice fight coming out of lockdown. Like that took like a lot of mental focus to, going through level 4 lockdown and dragging yourself out of bed every day when the chances of having a fight were pretty bleak. Borders were closed, everything was shut down, but I kept the faith. I kept dragging myself out of bed every day for some reason, and going and running stairs and running hills and lifting weights where I could. So it's I'm glad that all of that like mental focus is not going to be for nothing.
Where do you get your drive from, man? Because you are like, I don't know if you know who David Goggins is. You follow that guy online?
I'm aware of him.
Yeah. You're like,
I've seen him jogging along.
Yeah. He's like, yo, motherfucker, stay hard. Yeah, he's one of those guys. But you strike me as on that level of a dude who is just like driven. And yet, for a lot of the people that I follow online who are like super driven, they have like rough childhoods, right? Or they've got like some inner demons. And you've talked about like you don't like being still, and you get a bit anxious, and your head goes a bit like sideways with downtime. I'm just curious to know, like, is what you've got like just you innate, or do you read motivational literature, or do you follow motivational speakers? Like, what makes you so driven? Because it's atypical.
I don't know. I hate having a day off. Like I hate having a day off. It's harder for me to not get up and train than it is to get up and train. Like if I just get up and do the work, then I can come home and relax. if I skip a training session or miss out on work, like it just plays on me. It plays on me. Like I struggle to sit down and truly rest. So the only way that I've truly found like peace is through hard work and achieving something that day. Like, my ultimate goal is being world champion. And I feel like every day that I get up and train, like I move another step closer than that. Like when this fight came up to fight Dustin Poirier, with half a training camp compared to my usual, it physically would have been harder for me to turn this fight down. I really, like, as soon as that email came in, like I was just like, my eyes lit up and I was so excited. I went and did hill sprints when I read the message. So I don't know. I'm finding out that I used to think I was normal, but I'm finding out I'm a little stranger than most people.
I wouldn't say stranger. Like, I think, yeah, I don't know. I find your shit inspiring, dude. I'm not like trying to like gas you up, but like,
I think people just battle that, like, should I get up? Shouldn't I get up? Should I? Like, they go through like these yo-yo things. I've just found what works for me, and it's just getting up, just doing it every single day without question, finding that routine, pulling the trigger, and just doing it. And I find peace and I find happiness in that.
Because I know you've done a lot of work with the Kid Life Charitable Trust. They have that boxing fight night here in New Zealand, which is helping dudes with depression and yada, 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 and raising money for it. Do you struggle to be empathetic for people who are... Sometimes when I was younger, for example, people would like come with me a problem and like, just go for a fucking run, eat less donuts, do more press-ups, and you'll be fucking sweet. You know what I mean? But as I've gotten older, I've come to learn that actually I need to be a bit gentler with how I present some information to people. Do you struggle with that gentleness, or are you just like fucking...
It's funny. It depends. Like, it depends on the person. Like, every person is different, and every person like responds to things in a different way. It's funny when you walk in my gym, like day one, like I don't know you, like I'll just introduce myself, like, hey, I'm Dan, like, and I will be nice to you. I'll be nice to you until I know you and I know how you operate. And then I'll start pushing you. And then I'll start challenging you. So the guys that have been in my gym like for a year, like they will walk in the gym. And if they walk in late or if they walk in like lazy, I'm making them do burpees and push-ups. And if someone on their first day will walk in half an hour late, and I'll just let them jump into the class with a smile on my face. Like, it's everyone's different. So I guess I just get meaner as time goes on.
I like that. That's like, we just perhaps not meaner, but more honest, you know?
Oh, way more.
Yeah. What was good on day one is fucking shit on day like 35.
You were nice. You
yeah. What happened to you, Dan? I thought you loved me. How do you choose which coaches to use at City Kickboxing? I was always curious about that, because you've got like a massive brains trust of some of the most experienced kickboxers, MMA guys in New Zealand there, with Mike Angove and Trishima Pikatola, and obviously Eugene Behrman's your head coach, but then you've all got different strength and conditioning routines. And how do you decide who works with who? I was always curious about that.
Well, it just comes down to the person, like how different styles match up and different personalities. But I say I'll work with every coach at the gym, or I'll work with Twist a lot, bring Twist a lot. But for this last camp, I've been working. I'm fighting a southpaw. Dustin Poirier is a southpaw, and Mike Ango is a southpaw world champion. So I've been doing a lot of pad work and a lot of drilling, and I'm taking Mike Ango over for this fight because he's southpaw world champion, But I do Dougie's class a lot in the morning, and when I'm hitting pads, like Doug will be watching, and Doug will be saying, well, you should try this one, or you should give this technique a go. Like, so they all have input, and behind the scenes, they're all part of the same brain. Like, they all bounce ideas off each other in terms of game planning and approach for fights. Like, they all have various forms of input. So it's not like you just have one of them. That's really the secret to City Kickboxing success. Is not, you don't just pick one coach and then that's the only coach you learn from. That coach, you have one coach, like Eugene's my head coach and holds a majority of my pads, but there's like 5 brains above that, all bouncing ideas off each other and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work. So that's really that collective of knowledge.
Do you ever clash? Like, you're an experienced fighter now, man. Like you said, you've been around doing this stuff for over 10 years. Sometimes do you ever get to the point where you're like, nah, that doesn't work for me? I'm always curious about that because you're a coach in your own right now. Is there times that yeah.
When I'm at City Kickboxing, I'm a student. I shut my mouth. Do whatever my coaches say. Like it's you have a lot of trust and you put a lot of faith in your coaches. And so I'll follow what they say. Like I trust them 100%. Like I expect my guys to trust me 100%. It's when I'm at my academy, then I'm the one directing all the training and telling them all what to do. And when I tell them to do something, you can't have that second guess. Like, of course, you can ask questions and go back and forth, but there has to be a lot of trust between a coach and a fighter. So when I'm there, it's when I'm at City Kickboxing, it is North Korea, Eugene's Kim Jong-un, and I listen to whatever he says.
Didn't he die? Didn't Kim Jong-un die? Some shit.
His son, the second.
The
second?
It's hard to fucking keep up, man. Social media is a wild place, and I don't know what's true and what's not anymore. So how are you feeling for the Poirier fight? You said you're feeling good physically. You feel confident?
Yeah, I do.
You strike me as someone who's always confident, though.
Yeah, I tend to be pretty confident. It's like a mix of that, or like I just don't care. I think like I just like they're like, oh, you're fighting these big guys, like big famous name guys. Like like I don't feel like I feel very human, if you know what I mean. Like I feel very human when people say, oh, you got a big following and you're famous. Like that's not how I feel. Like I know that I'm just susceptible. I know if I get clipped on the chin, I'm going to go down. I know if I get hit in the body, I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to go down. I know if someone grabs my neck, I'm going to go out. So it would be the exact same for these huge names in the sport. Could be Connor, Tony Ferguson. I know full well they're just as human as I am. So it makes it a lot more real.
I like that. Because I've noticed myself as my friends become globally famous, I'm like, like I feel a bit like starstruck by them or some shit. But,
Oh, you do. Like I watch like the hype reel for like the UFC, and you do like you watch like the countdown, and you're just like seeing you're like watching yourself do it. You're watching your knock this guy out, knock this guy out, knock this guy out, training really hard, and got Joe Rogan being like, this guy's unstoppable. One touch and you will die. And I'm watching it like, whoa, far out. I'm that good. And then I think, and I'm like, nah, that's just someone's just really good at editing videos. They're not. That's not. I feel like that's not really me. That's like.
You strike me as like having really internalized like Bushido, like the Buddha way, like the martial artist way of staying humble and staying grounded and listening to your instructors. Do you have a spiritual practice, or do you have like a traditional Eastern approach to combat sports?
No, I don't. Like I'm always learning. Like I like to read anything that's combat related or war related, and you can get It's not any one source. Like I don't really put a label on it. I'm just constantly learning from everyone and everything, and it's really because I've made every mistake there is to make. Like I know that this is the best recipe for me. Like I'm not saying everyone should think that they're human and humble, because it's not going to work for some people. But I've tried it. It's because I've been like, yeah, I'm going to go out there full of confidence. You're the man. You're going to kick this guy's ass, and got the shit smoked out of me. So it's like that. I know for a fact that me being hyper confident doesn't work. That just doesn't. That's just not the best approach for me. The best approach for me is to be as level-headed as possible, go into it with the 50-50 mindset, and that makes me. When I know I'm human, that makes me a bit more dangerous.
I like that. Yeah, being overconfident is just as bad, if not worse, as being underconfident. I always found.
Oh, like I can't get like the adrenaline flowing. I can't
Yeah.
get that like nervous energy and creates adrenaline, and that adrenaline kind of shifts it up again and makes you sharp. I've always had the opposite effect of most people in that I tend to not get nervous when I go on and fight. Like I'll go on for fights and I'll just I've been into fights like way too relaxed. Like you're getting your ass kicked, been on your back for like 5 minutes, and I'll kind of click like, oh, you're fighting. Like, wake up. Like it's time to fight back. Like now you're losing. Like, so I've gone in like way too relaxed because I just don't get nervous. So I tend to try and make myself a bit more nervous. I tend to be like, all right, Dan, this guy's really good. You need to start getting nervous. There's 10,000 of your countrymen watching, your whole family, all of your friends are here. Like, get nervous. And then I drink a can of Monster and then I start to wake up.
That was very good product placement.
I was out back of Auckland, and I was like, all right, the nerves are gonna hit for this one for sure. And then I was like sitting there getting ready to work out, and I was like, damn it.
Yeah,
they're just not there. I was like, as a scull some energy drinks, and then I got twisted, go down and get me another coffee because it still wasn't enough. I was like, yep, no, just don't get nervous.
You talked just briefly about you've made some really big mistakes. What are a couple of your biggest mistakes, you think?
Well, how far do you want to go back? Because I've had a lot of ass whoopings in my time.
Let's start with a couple of the early ones, and then we'll come a bit closer. I mean, obviously, I think the one everyone notices was the Barboza fight, which is still relatively recent. But that was still like a win for you, and your stakes went up from that fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was one of the, the whole like Muay Thai, you never lose. It's like win or learn. That was one of those ones. You know what I mean? Doesn't strike me as
like that. That is kind of the approach I've had to my entire career. It's never been like, all right, you lose this one and then it's over. Okay. Like everything's on the line. Like regardless of success or failure, like the only reason I'm here, regardless of success or failure, is I have a plan. I have a step to move forward. Like I'm fighting Dustin Poirier next. If I beat Dustin Poirier, then I'm gonna call for a shot at the title. If I don't win, well then I have a backup plan already in place to move myself back towards the title. So I never think of it as like a step backwards. Like it's just my road just deviates a bit more and it gets a bit longer. And that's just always been the approach that works best for me. Yeah, like speaking of the Barboza fight, like got the shit kicked out of me. But then after that fight, I was able to buy a house for my family, like off of that fight. So everyone's like, oh, how did you pick yourself back up? It's like, well, I bought a fucking house. I bought a house. Like, at least I can cry in my own house with like, so, like I'm all good.
Because you've won 3 performance of the nights, right? You've had 3 of those, which is significant financial bonuses.
Yeah. So I had my first one was Hatu Haoki in Adelaide, and that was like a game changer because it's hard when you first start fighting. When you're fighting for like 10 grand, 20 grand, that's like if you let's say you lose like 2 fights that year. That's 20 grand. Like 20 grand is not a great salary to be paid for the amount of effort that goes in. So you can really change the trajectory of a life with that. All of that I put back into training, and I did a lot of travel with that money. I traveled to America to train. I traveled to Thailand and spent like a decent amount of time in Thailand training. So it's like I've always whatever money I had when I was coming up, like I always invested that back into myself, into my training and into improving rather than like buying stupid shit.
Yeah, you haven't been buying jewelry and shit. That doesn't sound like a mistake. We haven't touched on your mistakes yet. Those sound like good life choices. What are some of those mistakes you were talking about?
I don't know. I guess like because I have bounced all over the place, like and trained in so many different places, I never really found like a place to call home or set up like a long-term camp until I did move back to New Zealand and invested solely in City Kickboxing Eugene and the coaches there. I feel like if I would have just done that a lot sooner,
You could have retired by now. Yeah.
yeah, like things would be a lot different. But I always had to go and see for myself. Like because I used to move around gyms a lot. Like I first started training with my coach John Olson, and we moved to like 4 or 5 different locations, just like me and him and a handful of training partners. So I've always bounced around. So it was, and I've made a lot of mistakes because of that, because you're putting different ingredients in every single time. So the cake doesn't always work out the way you want it to work out. But now it's just like minor tweaks to our training camp. Like we have the meat and potatoes there, and now we just kind of change the flavorings a little at City Kickboxing. Like we've found what works for me and what's successful.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Well, so if you look at it that way, none of all those are just experiences, not mistakes then, huh? That's all just like, that's helped you be where you are now. If you hadn't done all that shit.
It's how you want to look at it. Like I definitely know the reason why, and that's another thing. Like I've always been like super honest with myself as to why I failed. Like a lot of people, well, the day before I did this, or a month out, I got a little bit of a flu, and that's why you can't look for just excuses. Like you have to just be very honest with yourself as to why you failed, or you're not going to make any real changes.
And I think that's something that we can take from combat sport, MMA, to our lives, right? Like any sort of situation, whether it's a breakup or a job failure or whatever, if we're 100% rigorous with ourselves, we're going to have better lives.
Yeah, like it's speaking for myself, like it's always helped me with life, like whatever the life lessons I've learned through martial arts have helped me in my day-to-day life, and made me a better man, and made me far more level-headed than I was before I found this.
What's after Poirier?
Well, 2 weeks sitting in a hotel room, I'll tell you that.
Just balling, chilling out.
Yeah, but it looks as though like I'll put myself like maybe one step, or should something happen with the Gaethje and Khabib fight, if someone gets injured there, I will definitely be the guy to put my hand up and slide in for that title shot. So it's a hard sport to really put it down in concrete. Like this is going to happen. So much can happen. You just have to be ready to capitalize on the opportunity.
Do you struggle to think one fight at a time? Like, sometimes you think about, I remember Wayne Parr talking about when he fought in the K1, and he was like, man, I made this big mistake thinking about how I was going to win the final, but I hadn't even won the quarterfinal yet. Is that something you struggle with, like itemizing, or you can keep that laser focus for now?
Yeah, well, that's it. Like I have a plan of success or failure. So I never expect a failure, but I always have a plan, and that always has like cushioned the fall. Like, because I've never been like, right. Like it never shatters. Like it's never like shatters my reality, because I'm like, oh well, we're going down this road we didn't want to go down, but it's still, I have a, it's going to loop around back to the ultimate prize. So yeah, I would never plan, because it's combat sport, man. You can't.
Yeah, fuck, anything can happen.
Fuck, it's like the worst. It's the most reckless career choice you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, it is.
So if you win, like you flip this coin and you get this double your money, or you get no money, or you get injured and then you get no money for 2 years. It's like the stupidest business choice anyone could ever make.
But you fucking love it, though. That's it, right? That's also the best feeling. Yeah, I know. That's so funny. It is funny. I'm really happy there to see you and your generation of fighters being able to live off it, though, because
I never
like it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. When I look at fight sports, even 10 years ago, I'm like, wow. I'd always tell people, make sure you've got your day job lined up, because $1,000 for, like for a 5-round Muay Thai fight, you're getting your fucking face ripped off. Isn't gonna,
Yeah,
So I'm really happy to see you guys. Yeah.
I never thought it would happen in my lifetime. Like I never expected it.
Well,
In my lifetime.
You're part of the
Yeah,
vanguard. Like you're part of shifting that, particularly for New Zealanders.
Yeah, so I like try to do what I can for the next generation as well, and make this like a genuine career choice, because it really wasn't. Like I was, when I went and told my family, oh, I want to be a professional fighter, I'm gonna do this. They're like, oh yeah, so like who else in New Zealand is making a living from that? And I was like, oh well, like no one, but I might be like the first one. And they were just like, because my sister's an accountant, the other one's like qualified and got a master's in architecture. Like both of them are like super smart. So I was always like, my parents were like, no, we got 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I know, but you yeah, boy. I fucking love that. But I'm gonna let you go. Good luck for next weekend, bro. It's next weekend, right? Yeah, next weekend.
Next weekend.
Yeah. The whole country is behind you. Australia's behind you. As a guy seen you come up for a long time, I'm constantly inspired and amazed by what you've done, and I look forward to when you eventually get to fight Khabib for the title after Poirier. And thanks for taking the time to talk with me today, bro. It's been real fun.
No trouble, bro. Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too. My pleasure. All right, peace, brother.
Cheers, brother.